Everyone thought I married my husband for his money. By the time our divorce papers were filed, I had already been called a gold digger, a manipulator, and a woman who only cared about expensive things. The strange part? None of those people had ever asked me what my life actually looked like. My name is Claire, and for 11 years I was married to Daniel. We lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. When people saw us together, they assumed we had the perfect life. Daniel owned a successful construction company. We lived in a beautiful home, drove nice cars, and smiled in every family photo. But appearances are surprisingly affordable. Respect isn't. When we first married, Daniel wasn't wealthy. We rented a tiny apartment where the kitchen sink leaked every week. I worked as a marketing coordinator while he struggled to build his business. There were months when my paycheck paid every bill. I never complained. I believed marriage meant building something together. When his company finally became successful, I felt proud. His success felt like our success. That's when everything slowly changed. He started introducing me differently. "This is my wife, Claire." It sounded normal. Until I realized he never mentioned that I had helped build the life he now enjoyed. At family dinners, his parents praised him constantly. Daniel worked so hard. Daniel sacrificed everything. Daniel built this family. I would smile politely. Nobody mentioned the nights I stayed awake, balancing our budget. Nobody remembered selling my grandmother's jewelry so we could make payroll during his hardest year. I never reminded them. Love doesn't keep score. At least I thought it didn't. A few years later, Daniel hired a financial advisor, then accountants, then attorneys. Without telling me, he started putting most of our assets under complicated business structures. Whenever I asked questions, he laughed. "You wouldn't understand." Those 4 words slowly became a wall between us. I stopped asking. Then came the comments. "If something ever happens between us, don't expect half of what I've earned." He said it jokingly. Everyone laughed. I didn't. Because jokes usually hide the truth someone wants to say safely. His parents became bolder too. His mother once looked directly at me and said, "Women are lucky when they marry successful men." I quietly answered, "Successful marriages require 2 people." She smiled. But I could tell she didn't agree. The rumors started after Daniel bought a vacation house. He proudly showed everyone around. When someone complimented the place, he smiled and said, "Hard work pays off." Again, no mention of we, only I. His relatives began treating me differently. If I bought a new dress, must be nice spending Daniel's money. If I planned a family trip, Claire certainly enjoys the luxury lifestyle. If I stayed home on weekends, easy when your husband pays for everything. No one knew I still worked full-time. No one knew I quietly invested every bonus I earned. No one knew I had retirement accounts worth more than most people guessed. I didn't feel the need to explain myself until everything changed. One evening, Daniel walked into the kitchen carrying an envelope. I think we both know this marriage isn't working. He placed divorce papers on the counter, just like that. No counseling, no conversation, no attempt. Only paperwork. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I asked one question. "Have you already told your family?" He nodded. They know. I almost smiled, because I knew exactly what story they had already heard. Within 48 hours, social media filled with subtle posts. Some people only stay until the money arrives. Character always reveals itself. Protect what you've built. Nobody used my name. They didn't have to. Friends stopped calling. Neighbors suddenly acted awkward. Even women I once considered close began keeping their distance. Apparently, the verdict had already been decided. Gold digger. Case closed. My attorney, Melissa, reviewed the paperwork carefully. She looked at me and asked, "Do you want revenge?" I shook my head. "No. You want the house?" "No. You want his business? No, she looked confused. What do you want? I answered without hesitation. I want the truth to stay documented. She smiled. That's easier than revenge. Over the next few weeks, I gathered every record I had kept for 11 years. Every mortgage payment, every transfer, every investment, every email, every loan document, every tax return. Not because I wanted to embarrass Daniel, because facts don't need emotions. They only need patience. The mediation date arrived. Daniel walked in confidently with his attorney. His parents sat behind him, smiling politely. They looked completely certain of the outcome. Then, Melissa quietly slid one thick folder across the table. Daniel's attorney opened it. His confident expression slowly disappeared. For the first time in years, Daniel looked genuinely nervous. The room became unusually quiet. Melissa didn't raise her voice. She simply began organizing documents one by one. This transfer came from Claire. This down payment came from Claire's savings. This emergency loan prevented the company from closing. This investment account existed before the marriage. Every statement was supported by paperwork. No opinions, only evidence. Daniel stared at the table. His attorney kept turning pages. His parents exchanged nervous glances. For years, the family story had been simple. Daniel built everything. Claire benefited from everything. But paper has a remarkable way of correcting memories. The mediator finally spoke. It appears Mrs. Bennett contributed substantially more than originally represented. No one answered. Melissa continued. She showed records of my retirement contributions, business loans signed in my name, credit cards I had quietly paid off, bank statements proving I covered household expenses during Daniel's early years. There wasn't a dramatic argument. There didn't need to be. Truth doesn't become stronger by being louder. After several hours, Daniel asked for a private conversation. We stepped into the hallway. He looked older than he had that morning. I didn't think you'd kept all of this. I answered honestly. I wasn't collecting evidence. I was keeping records. He looked down. I never expected everyone to believe I built everything alone. I nodded slowly, but you never corrected them. He didn't have an answer. That silence explained more than words ever could. The settlement changed completely. The agreement reflected our actual contributions instead of the story everyone had believed. I received what was fair. Nothing more. Nothing less. That was enough. A week later, something unexpected happened. Daniel's sister called. I owe you an apology. I thanked her. She continued. We honestly believed you married him for money. I asked, why? She sighed. Because that's what we were told. I wasn't angry anymore. Rumors usually grow where honesty is absent. One apology became several. Friends slowly reached out. Some admitted they had judged me. Others admitted they never asked for my side because they assumed there wasn't one. I didn't lecture anyone. People already carry enough embarrassment when they realize they were wrong. Several months later, I moved into a smaller townhouse. It wasn't as large as our old home, but every room felt peaceful. I decorated it exactly the way I wanted. No debates, no criticism, no need to justify anything. For the first time in years, home felt like rest instead of performance. I continued working. Eventually, I accepted a promotion that required more travel. The confidence I had spent years shrinking slowly returned. One afternoon, I received an unexpected envelope. Inside was a handwritten note from Daniel. It simply said, "You deserved more acknowledgement than I ever gave you." I'm sorry. There was no request, no excuse, no attempt to reconcile, just accountability. I appreciated that. Then I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, not because I wanted to remember the pain, but because forgiveness doesn't require forgetting the lesson. Today, when people ask why my divorce remained so calm, my answer surprises them. because my goal was never to win against my ex-husband. My goal was to stop defending myself against stories that weren't true. You cannot control what people assume. You cannot force someone to tell your story fairly. But you can live in a way that the truth eventually speaks for itself. The people who mattered learned the truth. The people who still believed the rumors were never really listening anyway. I discovered something valuable after my marriage ended. Your dignity is not determined by public opinion. It is determined by the promises you keep to yourself. Looking back, I'm grateful I never tried to compete with gossip. I competed with my own fear instead. And once I stopped needing everyone's approval, I finally became free. If this story touched you, please comment and subscribe. I have one question for you. Have you ever been judged before someone knew the truth? Let me know your answer below.